Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford Files Season 5, Episode 9, the double-length episode Black Mirror, written by David Chase and directed by Arnold Lavin. While the Rockford Files was ahead of its time, it did not predict the Charlie Brooker-created anthology series of the same name as this episode's title. While that series was titled after the dark reflections from turned-off modern technology like phones and TV screens, here it refers to something else that I'll get into a little later. The episode begins with the blown-out image of the sun and the episode title inverted from its usual white text to black. We then get some shots of Jim's beach before we see him arguing with Angel about Angel stealing his tyres.
Wrong. They were the same tires. I didn't sell your tires.
As Angel larks about, Jim stumbles over a lady who asks him about food recommendations.
Oh, well, it's a good thing you ask. It's the worst.
The lady in question is Megan Doherty, played by Catherine Harold, who Jim flirts with but is politely turned down when he asks her on a date.
It was nice talking to you anyway.
Same here. Thanks for asking.
We then cut to that evening where Megan is working, like she told Jim, as a therapist, and it's revealed to us that she's blind, which only adds to the terror when we see that she is being watched. The man approaches her without speaking and begins assaulting her before slinking off, further increasing the terror. She makes her way to the stairs, getting more frightened by the noise of footsteps, until she's saved by the janitor, played by James Garner's brother, Jack. We then cut back to Jim, who's just slightly obsessing over her, but does the honourable thing and lets it go. Or does he, as Megan's phone rings? It's not Jim calling her though, it's someone pretending to be her building manager, which scares her enough to prompt her to call Jim in a professional capacity. He quickly realises she's blind and, due to the nature of her job, begins probing into her client list, which she maintains is confidential, and their business seems to be concluded.
Because there's nothing I can do for you.
This is yet another fascinating opening to an episode with a situation the show has explored previously, a woman being stalked. And while it's not entirely original that she's a therapist, giving us a potential gallery of suspects, the addition of her inability to see makes the stalker all the more frightening, as he doesn't need to skulk in the shadows or rely on just creepy phone calls to intimidate his victim. He can confront her face to face without fear of discovery. Jim talks to Dennis about how guilty he feels not being able to help her, and not understanding why he feels guilty because it's not his fault that he can't help her. But he sounds more like it's his powerlessness that he can't contend with. We then see Megan with a client, Danny, who has issues with women, and is played by a returning John Plachette. So he's obviously the prime suspect at this point, until we meet her very next client, Norman, who has serious anger issues, and an unhealthy attraction to Megan. Jim has, perhaps unwisely, decided to keep tabs on Megan without her knowledge and follows her home, which is perhaps the most unethical thing we've seen him do, even if he has a good reason. But it's no good, as the stalker has already made his next move, rearranging all of Megan's furniture, leaving her thoroughly disorientated and quite distraught. She calls Jim, and thankfully he immediately lets her know what he's been doing.
I can't thank you enough for following me. I had no idea you were there.
She continues to uphold her ethics, but Jim does find a single clue, a matchbook with her name and address written in it, which he asks if he can take to a handwriting expert and cross-reference that with her clients. While the science of graphology has since been debunked, I think we have to allow the story this indulgence, as it was believed to be true at the time, and is really just a shortcut to get the investigation started, while keeping Megan's ethical standards intact. Jim then takes Megan out to dinner, and they both start to fall for each other, while Jim says he'll get a bodyguard for Megan while he's investigating. The less than tactful Charlie Martell.
I bet I know what your favorite music is. Stevie Wonder.
The handwriting analysis points us back towards Danny, all but confirmed when Charlie catches him messing with Megan's office door, and getting stabbed for the privilege. With Charlie in no fit state to give a description, Jim is stuck with following his initial lead. We then watch Jim and Megan's relationship develop as she meets Rocky while staying at Jim's trailer, and Jim continues his investigation, working his way slowly towards Danny. He finds Danny at his apartment, going by the name Jack Tuteska, and acting very on edge.
Well, I don't understand this mix-up.
Jim is forced to call on Angel, who, in typical fashion, thinks there's a bigger score that he wants in on.
What's the real deal here? Who are the big fish that are about to be fried?
What are you babbling about?
But eventually relents and tries to rob a blind woman, until Rocky catches him. Confirming that Danny and Jack are indeed one and the same, Jim reveals that Jack is actually an underworld contract killer, and Megan thinks that he must be someone with a split personality.
It's two distinct personalities, two distinct people.
While dissociative identity disorder, as it's now known, is heavily disputed, it has been used as a plot point for good or ill in drama for decades. But here it is treated with a reasonably high degree of realism, with Megan asserting that this is a very rare condition, and that Danny/Jack is highly unlikely to have the condition. And then, after she and the police psychiatrist are both satisfied that he does indeed suffer with this condition, it's at this point that Jim actually thinks he's faking it, arguing with Megan over how their positions have flip-flopped, with her knowing the psychology, but him understanding the mentality of con men.
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
The fight escalates and she asks Jim to leave, only to later get spooked when she's on her own. The next day, with Jim and the police watching her, Danny still manages to grab her, convincing her in the process that he is indeed faking it.
I don't believe you're two people.
Jim arrives before Danny can hurt Megan and overpowers him. In the epilogue, we discover that Charlie is okay and has returned his payment to Jim because he failed to protect Megan.
I blew it with the broad, and the service was not performed to par.
This is an incredibly tense episode, even though we find out who the stalker is relatively early on, and that's down to the way it puts you in Megan's shoes from the very start. At first, not letting us see her stalker, then them not physically interacting until much later on. In particular, the rearranging of the furniture scene is really unsettling, as the camera is kept pretty tight on her face and the room is kept in relative darkness, making us feel like we're in the scene with her. The way they handle Megan's blindness is a little clunky in places, although they do attempt to be as sensitive as possible. So points for effort. And the relationship between her and Jim is beautifully done, with him intentionally being a little more full-on than he usually is with the women in his life. While it's never made explicit, I think that the black mirror of the title refers to the dark mirror image of Danny contrasted with Jim in certain ways. While it's not carried through in every aspect of the story, we do have Jim getting infatuated with Megan at the start, looking her up in the phone book and following her without her knowledge, something which Danny also does. However, Jim's motives are pure while Danny's are not, and may in fact be part of a greater con scheme that we never actually get to the bottom of. It's left ambiguous enough that he could be the conman that Jim thinks he is, or have the split personality that Megan thinks he does, and I think the story is better for this ambiguity, even if we never find out what happens to him at the end. Tonally, this feels very different to previous episodes as well, feeling slightly oppressive, which only adds to the feeling of isolation that Megan experiences, even with the scenes of levity that Angel provides, particularly him hiding a stolen football under his shirt. These scenes manage to add some humour to a fairly bleak story, but without undermining the tension, and there's real chemistry between Garner and Harold. The ups and downs of their relationship adding a level of believability we don't often get in episodic television. All in all, this is a fantastic episode, although perhaps not the one to watch if you're looking for a bit of escapism, as it is quite bleak. So, it's another 5 out of 5 for me. Thank you. Goodbye.